ಭೀತಿ ತೊರೆಯುವ ನಾವು ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆ ಬರೆಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾ ವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ
ಖಾಲಿ ಜಾಗ ಭರ್ತಿ ಮಾಡಿ ಹೊಂದಿಸಿ ಬರೆದು ಲೆಕ್ಕ ಮಾಡಿ
ಚಿತ್ರ ಬರೆದು ಭಾಗವ ಹೆಸರಿಸಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗೂ ಉತ್ತರಿಸಿ
ಪಾಸು ಫೇಲು ಗೆಲುವು ಸೋಲು ಜೀವನ ಎಲ್ಲಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮಿಗಿಲು
ಅಂಕಗಳೆಂದರೆ ಮೇಲಿನ ತೊಗಟೆ ವಿದ್ಯೆ ಅದರ ಒಳಗಿನ ತಿರುಳು ಭೀತಿ ತೊರೆಯುವ ನಾವು ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆ ಬರೆಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾ ವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾ ವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾ ವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ
ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾ ವಾಣಿ.
Today we are going to study the last 5 units in the first language English text. Prose lesson number 9, Consumerist Culture. Prose lesson number 10, The Poet, the Pie and the Tart. Poem number 8, Mending Wall. Poem number 9, Buto. And poem number 10, CLM. When we come to Consumerist Culture, it was written by Cherian Alexander, an associate professor of St. Joseph's College here in Bangalore, who talks about how people are in love with consumerism. You see, they keep on buying things, and this happens only because they keep on looking at advertisements, and they are driven with a sense of mania, mindlessly consuming things, looking at these things from the media, to such an extent that when the author went to a shopping mall, he saw this phrase, shop till you drop. See that phrase, shop till you drop. And he says, this is the way people are living today in the dawning years of the 21st century. Now look at that sentence, media driven mania of mindless consumption. Now, you see the word M in most of the words over there. So you see, media driven mania of mindless consumption. Media, you see this word here, media, mania, mindless. So you see, the first syllable you all know is a unit of sound. The first syllable of most of the words in this sentence, they are the same. What do we call such figures of speech? Alliteration. So this sentence is an alliteration. Okay. Now, the poet says in the author says in the following paragraphs that our ancestors would be totally, they'd be totally confused. They wouldn't believe if we tell them that today people are quenching their thirst using millions of plastic cups and bottles filled with sweetened flavored water. And Pepsi and Coca-Cola are nothing but that, and they have no nutritive value at all. In fact, they cause damage to the bones. Our ancestors would be shocked to hear this. And when this happens, the manufacturers of Pepsi and Coca-Cola, they are raking in such a lot of revenue. You know how much the revenue is? Look at that. See, they earn more than the total gross national product of the world's 20 poorest countries. Now in the textbook you find the word score. Score refers to the number 20. So when you look at the countries in the world, if you take the poorest countries and you combine the gross national product of all those countries and collect it together, more than that is the money earned by these multinational corporations when they produce such products. And it's not only with Pepsi and Coca-Cola, it's the same with, say, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and then alcohol, and all these, and cigarettes, fashion design, so on and so forth. Oh, the list goes on. So this is how people earn a lot of money. These multinational corporations do it. How do they do it? Look at that. With the help of the most sophisticated thought controlling project. And what do you think is the thought controlling? They control your thought. You sit in front of the TV or you go through your social media, you just click on your mobiles or whatever forms of social interaction you have. you just keep on seeing a lot of advertisements. Advertisements on this, on that, to such an extent that your thought gets controlled. And so, a man called Benjamin Barber, see his name Benjamin Barber, had written a book called Jihad versus McWorld. Now, jihad, you'll know, means fighting against, okay? And he says, according to this book, okay, Benjamin Barber says, right from the year 1950 till 1990, the amount of money that people had spent on advertisements has been growing sevenfold, to such an extent that today they are spending, you know, McDonald's, you all eat, you know, hamburgers and, you know, all kinds of burgers. By the way, do you know what hamburger is? It is a burger made out of pork, okay, pig's meat. So, hamburger, when people eat, they eat it because of the advertisements they see about the taste. And McDonald's, the giant hamburger company, they spend around $1.4 billion on just advertising their products. So, you can imagine what the strength of their advertisement should be. When you go to the US, you will find people spending half their leisure time in watching TV. And the other half, where do you think they are found? At the shopping malls, buying the things that they have seen advertised on the TV. However, here in India also, there is no dearth of commodities. Thrilled shoppers say that the choices we get in India to buy today are like the objects that people get in the West. An Indian who returned from the US looked at the author, his eyes popping out. He said, there are 83 flavors of ice cream in the US, you know, which means he longs for the same here in India. And today in India, there is no dearth of commodities available. Luxury houses bursting with all the luxuries. Indians love that. They take to it like ducks take to water. And especially the people in the upper middle class, they don't find any difference between the kind of commodities and utilities available in the West and what is found here. They also have the same luxury. So, all this now leads to, under the title, development. But the author says, what kind of development is this? It's tragic. Why? You know why? Because whatever belonged to the public realm, like parks, lakes, playgrounds, all these things have now started shrinking. And you know, private people, private entrepreneurs, business people, they keep on expanding their business. This is because there is a continuous, inexhaustible impoverishment. That's why you see the word inexorable impoverishment, okay. So, there is a poverty created, and this poverty is continuously being created. Poverty of what? Poverty of things that belong to the public realm, like the parks, playgrounds, lakes, and so on. Not only that, you have transportation, healthcare, library, education, all these things are being pushed to the private realm. The only reason is the government people, you know, the government itself at times pushes everything to the public realm. So, what do these public entrepreneurs do? They take up everything into their hands, and then it leads to free market economy. Now, what is free market economy? You see, when the supply, demand, the way things are created, manufactured, the cost that is placed on a particular object, nothing is being regularized by the government. It is all given in the hands of the private people. So, you know what the private people do? They set their own standards, their own quality, their own money, their own cost on that particular object. To such an extent, even in the remotest areas, you find even shampoo packets, you find them in the remotest areas, in the villages of our country. And so what happens, these people in the villages, though they live under the subsistence level, they become passive buyers, you know, they keep buying. Because they cannot do anything else but buy. When they see someone else buying the same thing, they want to buy. So what happens, they become more impoverished. And you see, in the market, you find everything available, sleek models of cars, you know, luxury resorts, everything you have. The only tragedy is our roads are not so good for our cars to move. But still, this is how private entrepreneurs exploit the gullible customers. Gullible because the customers believe that they are buying. They will get a bottle of Coke far easily than buttermilk or tender coconut. And therefore, do you know what the World Bank does? I am sure all of you know what the World Bank is, IBRD. Okay, the World Bank, in order to reach every nook and corner of the world and to create free economy, they are doing everything in their power. You know, they advertise as much as possible. They give a lot of loans to the private entrepreneurs, private business people, take a lot of money. And those who advertise free marketing dream of a day when every household in India will have 2 cars in every garage. Travelers on the highway will be able to see huge lit up billboards of McDonald's and Pepsi everywhere. That is the day when we think we have become as developed as the developed countries. Now, people in India think that they will be reaching the promised land when the amount of garbage they throw out will be equal to the tonnage of garbage thrown out by their counterparts in the West, like junked cars, plastic cups, cartons, refrigerators, TV sets. To that extent, if they throw out like the Westerners throw out, then they think that they have reached the land of the almighty dollar. They've reached the promised land. Now, look at this word, this phrase, the promised land. Okay. Now, do you know why the author has written it with a capital P and a capital L? Because he probably refers to the land of Canaan as mentioned in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament of the Bible, which refers to the period before the birth of Christ. In that, now that's a long story, I just want you to understand why it is called the promised land. In that part of the Bible, you come across a group of people called the Hebrews, people who live in Israel. Okay, they were treated as slaves by the Egyptians. The Pharaoh, that is the king of Egypt, and his people treated these Hebrews, that is the Israelites, as slaves for almost 400 years. So these people started praying to God, and God appointed a man called Moses to bring them out of the land of Egypt to the land of Canaan and promised that land to them. God promised and told them that this will be a land where you find milk and honey flowing. You can go to that land, claim that land. So you can live happily in that land. And that is a land called Canaan, okay, according to that story. Now, for us, we all believe that God has promised that we can go to the promised land, and for us we think the promised land is US. That is why we think we can, you know, reach the level of the almighty dollar. When can we reach the level of the almighty dollar? Now, there are many countries which have dollar as their currency, like Canada and so on. So, Singapore, Canada, Australia, they all have dollar as their currency. But we say almighty dollar because out of all these countries, the US dollar is the most valuable. So, we think that we will reach that level if we can throw out such junk like refrigerators, junked cars, TV sets and so on. That is why we find lots of youth running to the US to get their MBA degrees. Therefore, the author says, to make, now we are all dreaming of making our country a model of development, okay. So, to make this model, see the word paradigm, it is pronounced as paradigm, meaning model. To make this model of development a practical reality for India and China, the resources of one planet Earth will not suffice. We need the resources of 3 such planets. Only then we can reach, that is India and China, most populated countries in the world, can reach the level of the US. Therefore, when we try to think that development takes place through aggressive advertising, aggressively advertising, continuously advertising, making people think of nothing else but that particular project, you know, controlling their mind. That is why the author says in the earlier part of the lesson, thought controlling project, most sophisticated project. Okay. This limitless market expansion is dangerous. Keeps on expanding, expanding. People keep on consuming, consuming. That is dangerous. And the author says, this is the most suicidal enterprise the human race has ever embarked upon, ever undertaken. It is like a mass suicide when all of us go consuming, whether we need it or not, we feel like consuming it. Therefore, this happens only because we, the common man has given all autonomy, all power to the business people. So he says, the world is running like mad people towards consumerism. I want this, I want this, I want that, I want that. They keep on consuming. So people are almost becoming mad. So he says the only way to restore sanity, instead of becoming mad, to remain sane, local communities, cooperatives, civil societies, democratic governments, all these should take back the autonomy that we have given to the business people. We should understand that the business people are the ones who are trying to control our lives. You know what Gandhi said? Look at that. He said, the earth has everything for man's need, not for his greed. And Henry David Thoreau, a 19th century American philosopher, said, superfluous wealth can buy superfluities. Superfluity is what is more than necessary. If you have wealth more than what you need, you will go and consume things more than what you need. But to consume that which is needed by the soul, not even 1 rupee is needed, not even $1 is needed. See the last sentence there. Money is not required to buy even one necessity of the soul. Therefore, the author advises we should say enough and start looking at the commodities of the soul. Instead of buying things, buying utilities, buying services, we all go to luxury resorts, hill stations, we enjoy ourselves. Instead of doing these things, he says, let us concentrate on the commodities of the soul. What are the commodities of the soul? The arts, culture, community life for a meaningful existence. Let us go serve the community in some form or the other, whichever way we can. That will give meaning to our existence. Consuming things will not give meaning. Whether we consume objects, whether we consume utilities, services, whatever it is, that is not going to give meaning to our existence. Only then there will be something of value left behind. Otherwise, if we keep on consuming, nothing of value will be left behind on our beloved planet Earth. Therefore, the author says, instead of spending our wealth on superfluities, let us spend the same wealth in the acquisition or in the dispersing of arts, culture, community life, serving people and so on, so that our life will become very meaningful. This is the main summary of the lesson, children. I hope all of you have understood. Now, following this, you have a few important questions. I have taken down the questions from the previous year's question paper starting from the year 2017. Along with those questions, I have added a few more probable questions in each of these lessons. You can just have a look at these questions. Right. Next we go to the last lesson in the text, a very humorous lesson indeed, The Pie and the Tart by Hugh Chesterton. Now, first of all, understand this particular story is based on two characters, Pierre and Jean. Actually, the way these names are pronounced, are, this is to be pronounced as this name. This is to be pronounced as Pierre. If any of you are pronouncing it as Pierre, it is pronounced as Pierre, and this sometimes pronounced as Jean, sometimes pronounced as Jean. Okay? Now, both these characters, both are men, young men, they are vagabonds. You know what vagabonds are? Beggars on the street. They do not have a proper job, so they keep begging on the streets. These are vagabonds. The other two characters in the story are Gaspar Gaultier, a pastry cook, a man who has a cake shop, and his wife Marion. These are the 4 characters. Now, in the beginning of this story, we come across Pierre and Jean. You know, it's a drama. They're all seated there on the stage, and they are discovered. You know, Jean is sitting on a table, on a bench, and Pierre is walking up and down, you know, blowing on his hands because it's so cold, blowing on his fingers, but then he's walking up and down. So, Jean gets very irritated, tells him, sit down, why are you walking like this? And now Pierre says, come on, look at my tunic. He shows his dress and he says, there are 23 holes in my tunic. I'm feeling so cold. How do you expect me to sit? At least if I walk, I'll feel warm. So Jean says, I'm not bothered about your feeling cold. I'm bothered about my stomach. I'm feeling so hungry. And then he says, a man has to live. If he has to live, he has to eat. So then Pierre says, yeah, that's what I did. You know, this man Pierre had been arrested by the law, taken to the court, made to stand in front of a judge called Judge Gaston. Okay. And when Judge Gaston asked him, why did you steal? This fellow said, well, Your Honor, I have to live. It seems Judge Gaston looked him up and down like this and said, I don't see the necessity. That means, you know, you see the humor there. The judge is saying, what's the big deal whether you live or not? Okay. So, this particular aspect of his life, Pierre tells Jean. And then Jean says, forget all that. Now we are so hungry, we better go and start stealing food. And they are sitting right in front of a cake shop. So Pierre decides, you know, Pierre or Pierre as you call, he decides to go and beg at the cake shop. And then he tells Jean to go and start begging and to practice how to beg. So he tells Jean, come and tell me how you're going to practice. Now Jean holds his stomach and says, for the love of Saint Agatha, please give something to a man who's not anything to eat for 3 days. Now Pierre tells him, wow, good acting, but just make it 7 days and let there be a squint in your eye so that people really believe you. So this is how they practice begging also. Now Jean goes and knocks on the door of the cake shop, and it is opened by Gaultier's wife Marion. And when she looks at him, she realizes he's a beggar and she says, go away beggar, I have no food for you, no money for you, my husband is out. And just as she says, Gaultier comes. Gaultier comes, about to go out of the house. He comes back inside as if he's forgotten something. Then he looks at Marion and says, Marion, where is that eel pie? I had made that eel pie, give it. The mayor is calling me for dinner, I have to go, let me carry the eel pie. And then something strikes him and he says, no, 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 it's below my dignity. I am a man of honor. How can I be seen carrying an eel pie through the streets of Paris? So why don't you bring it? So he asks Marion to bring it later. She refuses. She says, no, 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 I have a lot of work, I cannot do. So they both converse, and then Marion and Gaultier come to a conclusion. Gaultier will be sending a messenger to Marion to bring the eel pie, and the indication that he is a messenger from Gaultier will be that the messenger will ask Marion that he should kiss her hand. So with this agreement, Gaultier goes away. Now Jean had been overhearing this agreement between the man and wife, and he tells Pierre to go and ask for the pie and to say that he wanted to kiss Marion's hand. Pierre ironically laughs and he says, oh, yeah, if I go and kiss her hand and ask for the eel pie, you think she'll give it? Yeah, in that case, roasted fowl will fall from the sky. Nectar will fall from the sky, you know, like rain from the clouds. And champagne would be heard gurgling in the gutters. Now, roasted fowl means well fried roasted chicken or turkey or whatever bird they eat. Nectarine refers to the sweet drink drunk by gods and goddesses to retain their youth. Champagne refers to the name of a very good tasting French wine. So these are foods that are very costly. So Pierre says, yeah, if I can get an eel pie, all these things will also happen. Ironically, he talks. Then Jean says, now listen, are you hungry or not? And then Pierre says, there's such a hollow in my stomach. I'm so hungry. All the birds in the air can build nests in my stomach. You see, children, that is a hyperbole, a figure of speech, where something more than the truth is said in order to emphasize that particular truth. Nobody's got a hole in the stomach so big that a bird can build a nest, but that's what he says. That means his stomach was so empty. Such a figure of speech is called hyperbole. Okay, now after a lot of coaxing, Pierre goes and knocks on the door. Marion opens it. Pierre gets nervous, and instead of saying that Mr. Gaultier had sent him to get the pie, see what he says? Mr. Pie has asked me to fetch Gaultier. And then later he corrects himself and asks to kiss Marion's hand. Assuming that the messenger had been sent by her husband, Marion gives the eel pie to Pierre, and Pierre says, I will carry it so safely. I am second to none, no one better than me in carrying eel pies in all the streets of Paris. And then he says, as a mother with her small little kids, as a shepherd with his young female sheep, ewes means female sheep, and as Saint Ursula, again another saint he mentions. Saint Ursula was a saint who had been killed by others, and she had protected all her maidens. So he says, as Saint Ursula protected her maidens, as a shepherd protects his ewes, as a mother protects her bantlings, I will protect this eel, carrying it close to my bosom. Takes the eel, comes out of Marion's house, and then he's seen on the stage holding the pie in his hand and thinking that it was a dream. He tells the dream, don't go away. And Jean also comes. They both go out of the stage and they probably finish eating the eel pie. Meanwhile, Gaultier enters the cake shop, and he tells Marion, the mayor was out, he's forgotten that he had invited me for dinner, so mean of him, and now since he is out, I've come back, give me that eel pie, let me eat. Marion stares at him and says, what? Eel pie? Well, there's nothing here to eat. Then Gaultier gets so angry at Marion and says, woman, if this is a joke, it's not nice. Don't say that, where is the eel? Then Marion says, no, I've given it to the messenger you sent. He said he wanted to kiss my hand, that was the indication, I gave it to him. Then the man and the wife, they realized that they had been cheated by a stranger. Meanwhile, we find Jean and Pierre conversing after having eaten the eel. They converse about the eel that they had eaten. They say it was a masterpiece. They talk about the flavor, the plasticity, the tenderness, and the crust. Okay, all these characters about the eel pie, he says. And then Pierre says there's only one fault. Instead of one pie, there must have been two pies, he says. Okay, so they start talking about the pie, and meanwhile Pierre informs Jean. He tells him, look, when I went to ask for the eel pie, I saw a cranberry tart inside their house. Why don't you go get it? Jean now goes and knocks on the door, and he says, Mr. Gaultier sent me to get the cranberry tart because he says the eel pie was not sufficient. Now Marion disappears, goes back inside. Gaultier comes out with a cudgel in his hand. Cudgel is a short, thick stick, and starts beating Pierre. Pierre starts shouting and says, stop beating me, I'll tell you the truth. Because Gaultier asks him, where's the pie? You're a thief, you must have taken the pie. And then Pierre tells him, yes, 10 minutes ago, my friend overheard the conversation between you and your wife, and he came here, asked to kiss your wife's hand, and he took the pie and he's gone. Now Gaultier says, where is that friend? And Pierre says, he's not far away. So Gaultier says, go bring him, otherwise I'll have you both hanged for thieving, he says. And then Pierre enters the stage. Jean informs Jean that Marion wanted the same messenger to go and get the pie. So now Pierre feels very boastful. This is what Jean tells him, right? Pierre says, okay, it's a matter of no minutes for me, I'll go get it done. He knocks on the door. The moment he knocks, Gaultier pounces on him, seizes him by the collar and demands, calls him a lot of choice words and says, where is the pie? Bring it. And then Pierre explains, yes, I had taken the pie to the mayor's house. And then Gaultier says, oh, so the mayor was in. And then Pierre says, no, when you went, he was out, but immediately after you left, he came back. And when I gave him the pie saying that you had sent it, he was very grateful and he called you back for dinner. And now Gaultier feels so happy. He says, oh, the mayor called me for dinner. Fine, then I'll be there. You just go and tell him I'll be there in 5 minutes. Pierre asks him, what about the cranberry tart? Then Gaultier goes inside, takes the cranberry tart, gives it to Pierre and says, carry it very carefully. And then he carries it. Pierre carries the cranberry tart in his hand and he goes. The next scene you find Pierre holding the cranberry tart in his hand, and Jean enters and he is completely in disbelief. He doesn't believe that his friend Pierre could have got the cranberry tart so easily. So now he tells him, how did you get it? And then Pierre just holds the cranberry tart aloft in his one hand and stretches out the disengaged hand for Jean to kiss it. You see, kissing hands is the main part of the story. And Jean arrives as if he is going to kiss Pierre's disengaged hand, but suddenly he snatches away the tart from Pierre's hand and runs out of the stage, closely followed by Pierre. So it is to be understood that both of them would have eaten the cranberry tart as well. So this is the end of the story. Once again, you have a few important questions, children. Please look at these questions. Now children, let's go on to poem number 8, Mending Wall by Robert Frost. Now let's look at the important aspects of the poem. The narrator here says, because in one of the questions it is written, the one who is talking in the poem is not the poet. So let us take it as the narrator. The narrator says that there is something underground that does not love a wall. You know, frozen underground swells, spills the boulders in the sun, and the fallen boulders create such a huge gap that two people can go abreast at a time. And the narrator doesn't know why this happens. But he realizes that there's another reason for the gaps to appear. It is because of the hunters. These hunters, in order to bring the rabbits out of their hiding, and why do they want to do that? Because they want to please the yelping dogs. Dogs are yelping, you know, making a sound of dissatisfaction because they're not able to get the rabbits. In order to get the rabbits out of their hiding, the hunters create gaps in the wall. However, no one has seen or heard how the gaps are made, but during the springtime, these gaps are found there. So the narrator informs the neighbor beyond the hill about these gaps in the wall, because you see, this wall demarcates the boundary between his property and the neighbor's property. So now, when he informs the neighbor, both of them meet and start rebuilding the wall, each on either side. To each, the boulders fallen on each side. That is, one person cannot bend over and take the boulder on the other side. Whichever is fallen on his side, each one has to take and keep it. But the point is, these boulders are shaped like balls and loaves. They need a magic spell to make them stand in place. So, both these neighbors are very frustrated. So, they tell these stones, these boulders, see, they say, stay where you are until our backs are turned. Children, this sentence is for reference to context. So, they keep taking these balls, loaves, they keep on keeping them, their hands become rough, but then they think it's an outer game. And they have made a boundary by building this wall. The neighbor's property has pine trees and the narrator's property has apple orchards. The narrator says that his apple orchard will never eat the cones under the neighbor's pine trees. And so he says, why do we need a wall? I'm not going to trespass on your property, neither are you going to trespass on my property. So why do we need the wall? It's not necessary. But the neighbor says, nothing doing. See, important sentence in this poem. The neighbor says, no, good fences make good neighbors. This is an important sentence for reference to context. So what can the narrator do when the neighbor says he wants a wall because he thinks only a fencing wall will make a good neighbor? So feeling very mischievous, the narrator asks, why do they make good neighbors? In the olden days they made neighbors because they were cows, but now cows are not there. And so the narrator says, why do we need a wall? And he says, look, before I build a wall, I need to know what I am keeping inside, what I am keeping out. And he realizes that there is something that does not love a wall. And then he thinks, maybe elves, you know, elves are imaginary creatures. But then he also knows elves are not the real reason why this wall has gaps in it. So he looks at the neighbor firmly grasping a stone from the top, in each hand appearing like a savage from the Stone Age period. He realizes that the neighbor is moving in the darkness of the woods. But you see, the darkness does not refer to the darkness of the woods, the shade of the trees. It refers to the darkness in his heart, in his mind, where he thinks that it is necessary for a wall to be built in order to maintain neighborly relationships. So this darkness in his heart should be removed. So the poet says that the neighbor likes to pretend. You remember that sentence? Good fences make good neighbors. The neighbor, in spite of the narrator telling him so many times, the neighbor still pretends as if he has thought of such a nice sentence, and he continues saying, good fences make good neighbors. Actually, the thought had been from his father, that is, the neighbor's father had told him that thought. So he starts pretending as if it is a thought that he had thought of himself, and he keeps repeating that sentence. So what could the poor narrator do? He had to listen to what the neighbor said, and they had to build the wall. So they had to mend the wall in which there had been gaps. This is the summary of the poem, children. Now look at the questions. Next poem, poem number 9, Bhutto by Thoreau Dutt. Now I am sure all of you know the story of Ekalavya from the epics. However, the same story is given here. The only difference is, instead of Ekalavya, we find the name Bhutto. We begin with Bhutto having made a statue. You see in this particular figure here, Bhutto had made a statue of Dronacharya, and worshipping his guru, he started learning archery, practicing archery on his own. And when Dronacharya and Arjuna, who had come that side, saw him, Bhutto informs Dronacharya. See, he says he had no name, no pelf. Pelf means money, no wealth, in order to seek discipleship from Drona. So he was driven with shame. So he started learning archery all by himself. He revered, respected Drona as his master, said all his inspiration and knowledge had been derived from Drona. So now Drona asks Bhutto, he says, well, if you have learnt archery from me, give me the due that a student should give his master. In our language we say Guru Dakshina. Okay, so he asks him for that. And then he says, let the past be past, let it be dead and gone. Henceforth, all relationship between you and me will be new. So give me what you owe me. Bhutto answers and says, my dear master, whatever I conquer by my skill, everything I will give to you. Then Drona asks him, is it a promise? Then Bhutto says, as long as I have breath and life in me, I will give you all that you demand. Drona says, Bhutto, rash promises end in strife. Look at this sentence, children. This is for reference to context. Rash promises end in strife. Think twice before you give that promise. And then the disciple says, Master, with great eagerness, ask what you want. I will do whatever you ask me, and I will not blame you at all. You will be free from all blame. Then Drona calls Arjuna's attention. Both Arjuna and Bhutto are silent. Drona calls Arjuna's attention and tells him, Arjuna, loudly and clearly, he says, Arjuna, for your sake, since I had promised you that you will be second to none in archery, you will be the best archer, since I had promised you that, in order to make a recompense for that, I will now ask. And so he looks at Bhutto and asks, give me your right thumb. You know, children, without the thumb, you cannot practice archery. The moment he said that, there was no retaliation at all from Bhutto. He lifted up the knife, the sharp steel glinting in the sun, and next minute his right thumb was on the sword, was on that wet mud. And he left. He did not cry, not a tear in his eye. He left his matter with his God. Drona was so taken aback by this great sacrifice of his disciple, he says, fame shall sound thy praise from sea to sea, and men shall link thy name with self-help, truth and modesty. Modesty, humility, to be humble. This sentence is important for reference to context. So, this is how Drona blessed him, saying that wherever the concept of self-help, truth and modesty is mentioned, Bhutto will be a model for these qualities. This is the summary of the poem, children. Now again we have some important questions. Now we go on to the last poem in the text, CLM. CLM stands for Catherine L. Masefield, the mother of John Masefield, the poet. In this poem, the poet talks about the sufferings of a mother as she gives birth to her children. John Masefield talks that his mother had lost a part of her every time she gave birth, and she died while giving birth to one of John Masefield's siblings. In the dark womb, he refers to the womb of his mother, Caroline Masefield. He says, in the dark womb of my mother, that is where I began my journey. And in order to give birth to me, the mother lost all her beauty. My beauty is equal to the common earth, but she lavished it abundantly on me. You see, children, when you look at a pregnant woman, she never looks beautiful, whoever it is. She looks completely disproportionate, everything so ugly about her. So, the best part of her beauty is gone when she carries the baby in her womb. That period of pregnancy makes her look very ugly. That is what the poet says. So, he says, the mother had lavished, given abundantly of her beauty to her children. And he realizes that he could not have seen or heard or even, turned a little bit inside the mother's womb without killing a part of the mother. He knows every time he turned, the mother would have felt the pain. And that is why he says, now that mother who's dead and gone, she is inside the grave, she cannot see the poet. And she cannot see whether that son to whom she had given birth had made good use or bad use of the life that she had given him. She cannot knock on the dusty door of the grave. Dusty door. Now, this is a Christian poet, so understand he refers to, the Christian way of getting rid of a dead body, keeping the body inside the coffin box and burying it. That is why he says dusty door. The mother cannot knock on the door to see how her beauty was now like dust in her son's mind. How much of beauty she gave him. How much she longed to see him grow up into a good human being. But now, all that beauty which she gave him is like dust. Her son has not turned out to be a good man. So she will feel very sad. If she could open the doors of her grave, come back to life, and if she could walk on the street, and if she had seen her son coming right opposite her, she would not have recognized him. He was so grown up. And probably there was a lot of evil on his face, so she would not have understood that it was her son. But maybe her soul would have perceived what she had done for him and now how he is. And so, now the poet says, what have I done? I remember that I owe a debt to my mother and womankind, but what have I done to repay that gratitude? For all the pain she suffered during her pregnancy, the days of misery she spent during her pregnancy, nothing can repay. Nothing in the world can repay that misery and pain that a woman undergoes when she carries a child in her womb or when she delivers the child. And see what the poet is saying. When I was in the mother's womb, I was sucking her blood like a leech. I'm sure all of you know what a leech is. It's an insect that sucks blood. So he says, inside the womb, I was sucking all the food that she was eating, that was being converted into the blood that I was sucking from her. And though, he uses the word mouthless body. See this word here? He uses the word mouthless body. Actually, the fetus inside the womb, that is the baby inside the womb, it is not that it does not have a mouth. In that case, all of us will be born without a mouth. The baby has a mouth, but it sucks the blood. Before the releasing hell of birth is reached, before the baby comes out of the mother's womb, that is like a release for the mother when the baby comes out. And when it comes out, the pain that is caused is like hell. That is why he uses the word releasing hell of birth. Before the mother reaches the releasing hell of birth, when she releases the baby out of her body, what does the baby do? With its mouthless body, it sucks the blood of the mother. Now the poet wonders, what have I done to express my gratitude to my dear mother? Nothing. We men, he says, always gain victory over women because of their physical strength. And he says we ignore women, we treat them as if they are not important at all. We do this because, he says, man's eyes are lustful. Lustful means desiring something that does not belong to you. Man's eyes are so lustful, it roams about the world because he has a strong desire to enjoy things. In order to establish his supremacy over women, man's lustful eyes roam the world, and so he says, grave, keep shut, lest I be ashamed. Do not open, do not let my mother come out and see what kind of a wretched man I am. My mother will be ashamed to see me, so do not let my mother see me, he says. This is the main summary of the poem, children. Now again, you have a few questions. So thank you all very much for your patient listening and wish you all the best for your board exams. God bless you. Today we are going to study a few grammar components of the textbook, the grammar that you are going to get for the board exam. We are going to study about the analysis of sentences, degrees of comparison, voice of the verb, direct and indirect speech. In today's lesson, we will study about these 4 grammar components. Now let us take the first one, analysis of sentences. Most of you children are frightened the moment you think about compound, complex, simple sentences. Nothing to worry at all. Just remember a few tips given, you can easily change the sentences. Now let us understand what a clause is. Now unless you know what a clause is, you cannot change a sentence from one kind to the other. So a clause is a group of words which have a finite verb. There should be a complete verb in a group of words, then it is called a clause. A clause which gives a complete meaning is called a main clause. That means a group of words consisting of a finite verb which gives complete meaning is called a main clause. So what is a subordinate clause? A clause which gives incomplete meaning. You see, a subordinate clause will also have a finite verb, but it will give an incomplete meaning. Now look at this example. Tina went to the market. It is the main clause. Tina is the subject, went to the market is the predicate, in which went is the verb, the finite verb, and it gives complete sense. See this next example. While Tina was going to the market, while Tina was going to the market, you see that? Was going, that is also a verb, a finite verb which gives complete meaning. However, look at that sentence again. While Tina was going to the market, now if you stop at that, what is the meaning? Incomplete meaning. If somebody tells you while Tina was going to the market, you will wonder why is he not continuing the sentence? Because it is a subordinate clause. Therefore, she met her friend becomes the main clause. She met her friend gives complete meaning. It can stand on its own. While Tina was going to the market is a subordinate clause. So, a subordinate clause also consists of a finite verb, but it does not give complete meaning. Now, let us see what a simple sentence is. A simple sentence will consist of only one main clause. A compound sentence will consist of two main clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction. And a complex sentence will consist of one main clause and one or more than one subordinate clause. Please read this again, children, and memorize this as a formula. Like you memorize the formula in your mathematics, understand this also. Simple sentence, one main clause. Compound sentence, two main clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction. Complex sentence, one main clause, more than one, either one or more than one subordinate clause. Now, let us see the examples for these clauses and these sentences. Though he ran fast, he did not win the race. You see, he ran fast is a main clause. However, the addition of the word though makes it a subordinate clause because the meaning becomes incomplete. Whereas, if you say he did not win the race, see, supposing someone asks you, did he win the race? You will say, no, he did not win the race. It gives complete meaning. So, he did not win the race is a main clause, though he ran fast is a subordinate clause. Hence, it is one main, one subordinate complex sentence. The same sentence, when you change it into a compound sentence, you see, he ran fast, but he did not win the race. He ran fast is a main clause. He did not win the race is a main clause. They are joined by a coordinating conjunction. Hence, it is called a compound sentence. Next, in spite of running fast. See the word running there in this last sentence. The word running is not a finite verb. A verb which has only verb form plus ing is not a finite verb. So, in spite of running fast becomes a phrase which does not consist of a finite verb. The next part of it, as usual, is a main clause. He did not win the race. So, he did not win the race is a main clause joined together with a phrase in spite of running fast. Hence, it consists of only one main clause. Therefore, we say it is a simple sentence. Now, there are certain tips. See, generally in your board examination, they ask you these two kinds of sentences. When they give you the sentence, it will usually be a contradiction or an addition. See, a contradiction, for example, like the previous sentence that was given, though he ran fast, he did not win the race. That means, when he runs fast, you expect him to win. But the contradiction is that he did not win. So, when a sentence consists of a contradictory meaning, what are the words that you use to change from one type to the other? In a compound sentence, use the word but. In a complex sentence, use these words though, although, even though. In a simple sentence, use in spite of or despite. So, these are the tips. You should remember these words. If it is a contradiction that is given, these are the words you can use to change. If it is an addition that is given, then you can use for the simple sentence on plus verb plus ing. For a complex sentence, you can use when or after, and for a compound sentence, you can use and. For example, on hearing the news, hearing, not a finite verb. So, on hearing the news, she fainted. So, that is a simple sentence. Complex, when she heard the news, she fainted, or after she heard the news, she fainted. Compound, she heard the news and she fainted. So, you see, when addition is given as the meaning of the sentence, these are the words that you can generally use. Okay. Now, there are two kinds of conjunctions. You need to know this in order to change from complex to compound, simple, or whatever, the other way around. Now, let us see what coordinating conjunctions are. First of all, you see the word given within bracket fanboys. This is an acronym for coordinating conjunctions. See, for, F for, A you can write and, N for nor, B for but, or for O, yet for Y, and so for S, fanboys. These are the basic coordinating conjunctions. Now let's go on to the subordinating conjunctions. See these words: as if, till, until, though, even though, although, since, when, wherever, after, which, whichever, whoever. There are lots of words that you can use for subordinating conjunctions. Now the point is, how will you find out the difference between subordinating conjunctions and coordinating conjunctions? I'll give you a tip. You know what? A subordinating conjunction can occur in the middle of a sentence, or it can occur in the beginning of a sentence. Okay, it can occur in the beginning or in the middle. For example, she came to school though she was sick. Okay, the same thing, though she was sick, she came to school. So you see, the word though can be written in both the places. Whereas, take the word but. I've given you in the previous example, but should be used. Okay, for a compound sentence, can you say, but she was sick, she came to school? No. Where can you use the word but? Only in the middle. She was sick, but she came to school, or yet she came to school. So you see, subordinating conjunctions will occur in the beginning or in the middle of a sentence, whereas coordinating conjunctions never begin a sentence. They always join to main clauses. This is the difference between coordinating and subordinating conjunctions. Next we go to the degrees of comparison. Among the degrees of comparison, as all of you know, you have positive, comparative, superlative degree. Okay. Though you may have 3 degrees of comparison, that is 3 levels, lower level, middle level and higher level. Okay, 3 levels at which you compare. There are 4 kinds of comparisons. There is only one object in the superlative degree. That is one kind of comparison. See the example, Suresh is the tallest boy in the class. So he is the only one who is that tall. All the others are shorter than he is. So that's the meaning, only one in the superlative degree. Next, the second kind of comparison, few objects are there in the superlative degree. See that example. Suresh is one of the tallest boys in the class. That means there are a few more who are equally tall as he is. Okay, he is not the only one who is the tallest. So this is the second kind of comparison. Third, one object is compared to only one more object at a different level. See that. Suresh is taller than Ankit. The fourth kind of comparison, one object compared to another object at the same level. See that sentence? Suresh is as tall as Ankit. Now this is for your information, your knowledge. You should know that there are 4 kinds of comparisons. However, in the board exam, you will be asked to change from one degree of comparison to another degree of comparison. Okay. Now at this point I want to make it very clear to you. See the first point on the screen. One object compared to another object at a different level. Now when you are given only 2 objects to compare, there is no superlative degree. Superlative degree comes into question only when there is one object and all other objects of the same type compared. Here Suresh is taller than Ankit only. So only Suresh and Ankit are compared, so there is no superlative degree. Because if you say Suresh is the tallest, that means he is not taller than Ankit, he is the tallest in the class. No, but the sentence says he is taller only than Ankit, which means Prakash may be taller than Suresh. So you see, you cannot get superlative degree if there are only 2 objects compared. Okay. Next. Now let us see the structural formula. When a sentence is in the positive degree, you see, you have to use this kind of structure. You begin the sentence as plus positive degree word plus as. See the example. No other animal is as useful as. See this? As, okay, useful as. So what happens here? The structure is there for you to follow. Now see the structure for the comparative degree. In the comparative degree, you will begin the sentence and you will have the positive degree word plus er form of that word plus the word than. What do you mean by er form? You see, English is a very funny language where what applies to one rule will not be the same elsewhere. Okay? So like that, if you see, there are certain words which will have er added to it or est added to it to make it the comparative and superlative degree respectively. But there are certain words where the er form will be more, the est form will be most. Like this example, see, cow is more useful than. More useful is the comparative degree of the word useful. So you see, there are some certain words where er is not added. Okay. Next, we go to the next degree, superlative degree, in which you have the plus positive degree word plus est form. See that? The most useful. In this particular sentence, because useful is the adjective given, we do not use er or est. So we use more useful, most useful. So did you all understand this? Now let us see how these words end with er, est, more or most. There are certain rules to follow. You know what a syllable is? A syllable is a unit of sound. You know, when we speak, we combine sounds and make words. So every sound that we utter is called a syllable. Now there are certain words in the language which have only one syllable, certain words which have more than one syllable. The general rule is, if there is a word with a single syllable, it should end with er in the comparative degree, est in the superlative degree. Look at that example. Bright is the positive degree, brighter comparative degree, brightest superlative degree. However, as I said, there are exceptions to every rule, right? Now look at the exceptions. Sunny is a double syllabic word. There are two syllables there. Likewise, the word happy, two syllables. But you see, they end with er and est. Sunnier, sunniest. Happier, happiest. These are the exceptions. There are certain words which have exceptions. Now look at the polysyllabic words. Polysyllabic means words which have more than one syllable. Polysyllabic words have more added to the positive degree, most added to the superlative degree. For example, we say intelligent. See that? Intelligent is a positive degree word, more intelligent is the comparative degree, and most intelligent is the superlative degree. Again, you have exceptions. Lovely is a polysyllabic word, more than one syllable. But see, I told you polysyllabic will have more and most, but see here it does not have. It has er and est. These are certain exceptions in the language. The next topic we go to, voice of the verb. Now, before we begin to understand the voice of the verb, first of all, we need to understand the different parts of a sentence. Now, let us take the different parts of a sentence. Subject refers to the doer of the action. The verb refers to the action done by the subject. And the object refers to the receiver of the action. Complement refers to a word, phrase or clause that gives extra information about the subject or the verb or the object. Now let us see the rules that we need to remember when we change a sentence from active to passive voice. Okay. First we have to change a sentence from active to passive. In order to do that, we need to understand which is the subject of a sentence. And which word would you call the object of a sentence? Which word would you call the verb of a sentence? This is what we need to understand. As I already said, subject refers to the person who does the action. See, when the subject comes first and the object comes at the end with the verb in the middle, that is said to be in the active voice. That is why we say SVO equals active voice. And then the reverse order, when the object comes in the beginning and the subject comes at the end, it is said to be in the passive voice. See, the apple becomes the object, was eaten, the verb, Adam becomes the subject. So, OVS equals passive voice. Understand this formula, SVO equals AV, OVS equals PV. Another example, she washed the clothes were washed by her. Again, she, subject, clothes, object. In the answer, clothes comes in the beginning, her comes at the end. So, this is how we interchange the position of the subject and the object. The second rule you need to remember, the tense of the verb should not change. Anil has done the homework. The homework has been done by Anil. Sonu is reading a book. The book is being read by Sonu. Now, look at that. Has done remains has been done. But look at the next example. The book is being read by Sonu. Being read. What is given there? Is reading. So, whenever you find present or past continuous tense in the given question, to change the voice, add the word being. See the word being there? You can see the word being here, right? Okay, so add this word being here, then you will get the correct structure of the sentence. So, whenever a present or past continuous tense is mentioned in the given question, to change it into the right form of the passive voice, add the word is being. The third rule, the kind of sentence should not change. Now, you know there are 4 kinds of sentences: assertive, imperative, interrogative and exclamatory. These sentences, the kind does not change. If it is an interrogative sentence, it remains interrogative. Look at that. Who taught you English? When you change it, by whom were you taught English? Interrogative sentence remains interrogative. See the next one, assertive. They took him to the park. He was taken to the park. Assertive. Both are assertive. So, kinds of sentences should not change. The next rule, whenever the subject or the object is missing in the given question, you have to insert the relevant subject or object. See the first example. This building was painted last year. This building is the object because action is being done on the building. Somebody is painting it. Okay. Was painted, verb. Last year, complement. Tells you when the action was done. So, what is missing here? Subject. Whereas, in order to change it, what do? We have to have the subject to get the active voice. So, we say, the painter painted this building last year. See the second example. They, subject, ate, verb, fast, complement. What is missing here? Object. So, how do you change it? You need the object to begin the sentence. So, introduce the relevant object. The food was eaten fast by them. So, the food becomes the object. You introduce the object. Next, we go to the next part of grammar, direct and indirect speech. There are certain rules to be followed when you change a sentence from direct to indirect speech. The first one, punctuation marks. Second one, reporting verbs. Third, tense forms of verbs. Fourth, personal pronoun. Fifth, adverbs, adjectives and verbs. Okay. Now, let us go on to the first one. Punctuation marks. How do punctuation marks change in a sentence when it is given in the direct speech? When you change it to an indirect speech, how does it change? See the rule. Remove all punctuation marks except the full stop. So, Ravi says, he is saying, I am hungry. Look at the punctuation marks removed in the answer. Comma is gone, inverted commas are also gone. So, Ravi said that he was hungry. Next, reporting verbs will change. Now, you might wonder what are reporting verbs? I will tell you. See, in a sentence in the direct speech, you will find a verb outside the inverted commas and a verb inside the inverted commas. The verb inside the inverted commas refers to the words that were spoken by the speaker. However, the verb that is seen outside the inverted commas, now it can be either in the beginning or at the ending. Okay. So, the verb that is seen outside the inverted commas refers to the body language of the speaker. Let us imagine a classroom situation in which you probably, let's say your chemistry teacher is busy teaching you and there is a girl sitting in the last bench reading a book and laughing. You know, maybe some joke in the book, she is laughing and she is caught by the teacher. Teacher gets very angry and she says, "Get out of the class." The girl refuses to go initially and then the teacher says, "Will you go or shall I go?" Now, you are all common with all this, right? All these things happen in the classroom. So, the teacher says, "Get out of the class." And the girl goes, she stands outside. And let's imagine the vice principal is on her rounds and she looks at the girl standing outside the class and crying. She enters the class and she asks one of you, "Why is that girl standing outside and crying?" What are you going to say? Teacher ordered her to go out. Teacher is not saying, you might say, you know, since we are not speakers, native speakers of English, we will say, teacher said that she should go out or teacher told her to go out. But teacher didn't tell her. What is teacher doing? Commanding. She is ordering the girl to go out of the class. So, we use these reporting verbs, you know, we change these reporting verbs depending on the body language of the speaker. Somebody comes and begs you for money, he is not going to say, "Give me the money." He is going to say, "Please give me some money." When you report his sentence to another person, you have to say, "The beggar pleaded, requested." Okay. So, these are the words, that is how we change the reporting verb depending on the body language of the speaker. Now, there are 4 kinds of sentences again, as I said. Let us see how the reporting verbs will change. See, the reporting verbs will change depending upon the kind of sentence that is found inside the inverted commas. So, let us see how these reporting verbs change. If it is an assertive sentence, in the direct speech said will be given. Indirect speech you can change it to told, informed, instructed, advised, announced, declared. All these words can be used. Imperative, ordered, requested, basically these 2. And you can add a few more if you want. Interrogative, asked, questioned. Exclamatory, exclaimed, observed. So, this is how you use the reporting verb to change into indirect speech. Next, we look at the tense forms of verbs, how they change from direct to indirect speech. These are the changes to be made. All verbs in the present tense will change to the corresponding past tense. See the example. Tanu said, "I am writing a letter." Tanu said that she was writing. See, am is changed to was, but the continuous tense remains. Am writing, was writing. The classification remains the same. Second sentence, Rupa says, "I have read this book." Rupa said that she had read. See, have is changed to had. Perfect tense, present perfect is changed to past perfect. Next, there are certain exceptions to this rule. We cannot say all the time present tense will change to past tense. The present tense remains in the present, it does not change to the past on 2 occasions. What are they? Look at that. When the sentence refers to a universal truth, the tense remains in the present. It does not change to the past tense. See the example. Imagine a small child goes back home in the evening and tells the mom, Mama, my teacher taught me today that the sun rose in the west." Will that be correct? No. If she says that, that means only till today the sun has risen in the west, tomorrow it's going to rise in the east. Sorry, it rose in the east, tomorrow it's going to rise in the west. No, that is wrong. So, you have to accept the universal truth as it is. When you use a universal truth, the present tense remains in the present tense. Let us see the next exception. When the sentence refers to a habitual action, the tense remains in the present. It does not change to the past tense. Habitual action, what happens on a daily basis? See, John said, "Mr. Peter goes for a walk every morning." John said that Mr. Peter Went for a walk, if you say, that means till today he went, tomorrow onwards he is not going to go. No, that becomes wrong, because he has been going every day, tomorrow also he is going to go, in the future also he is going to go. The habitual action will refer only to the present tense. So, did you all understand? This is how the tense forms get changed. Now, let us go to the next one, personal pronouns. You see, personal pronouns will change depending upon the context of the sentence. Example, I said to my son, I want some water to drink. I told my son that I wanted some water to drink. You see that I remains I. Some people think first person will change to third person. No, it does not. Second, see, Mahesh said to his son, I want you to bring that book here. When he says you, he is referring to his son. You is the second person. But see how it changes. Mahesh told his son that he wanted. I changes to he. Okay? He wanted him, or you can say his son. He wanted him. So, you changes to him or his son to bring that book there. So, you see, like this we can give a lot of examples for the way in which personal pronouns change. They change depending upon the context of the given sentence. Along with this, we do have adjectives and adverbs which also change. Okay. Now, let us see how these adjectives and adverbs change from direct to indirect speech. Okay. See, now will change to then, adverb of time. Today will change to that day, adverb of time. Tomorrow will change to next day, adverb of time. Yesterday changes to previous day. Here, adverb of place changes to there. Ago, again adverb of time changes to before. This demonstrative adjective changes to that. These changes to those. Verb, come will change to go. So, this is how these words also change. Adjectives, adverbs and verbs will also change from the direct to the indirect speech. So, these are a few tips, children, that you should remember when you study grammar. I will meet you again in another session of grammar classes. Children, in the previous grammar class, we studied about compound complex simple sentences, voice of the verb, and direct indirect speech, and active and passive voice. In today's class, we shall study about prepositions, conjunctions, articles, figures of speech, agreement of the subject with the verb, question tags, if clause, tense forms of verbs, different structures, phrasal verbs, and antonyms, synonyms, genders, collective nouns, parts of speech, and give one word for specialists, homophones, rhyming words. And in composition and comprehension, we shall study about letter writing, essay writing, and comprehension passage. Now, let us get on to the first of these. Prepositions are words that occur before a noun or a pronoun, indicating the relationship between that noun or pronoun with any other part of the sentence. Now, this relationship could indicate direction, place, time, cause, amount. See the example given. He is going towards the post office. See, towards is a preposition of direction. Rani met her friend at the bookstore, talks about the place. Please be here by 10 o'clock, at 10 o'clock, talks about the time. It is because of or due to this reason that I did not speak, shows the cause. What is the cost of this article? The word of, a preposition, talks about the amount. Next, we go on to conjunctions. Conjunctions are words that join two words or two sentences or two clauses in a sentence. Now, in the previous class, I have given you a detailed instruction regarding coordinating conjunctions and subordinating conjunctions. So, you can go through that and find out which are the coordinating conjunctions, which are the subordinating conjunctions. Now, conjunctions, as far as the board exam is concerned, two of the topics that they can give you is addition, where you will have to write the coordinating conjunction, and or they will give you contradictions, where you will have to write the coordinating conjunction but. So, these are the coordinating and subordinating conjunctions you will have to learn about. See the structure of the sentence given in the examination, try to join them with the help of either the coordinating or the subordinating conjunctions. Next we go to articles. Now I am sure you all have studied about articles. There are two articles, a or an and the. Now the is an article that is used to refer to specific or particular nouns. The usage of articles depends on the pronunciation of the word that follows the article. Now a and an refer not to particular but to general nouns. Therefore they are called indefinite articles. Now you all know articles are used. How are they used? We use an in front of a countable noun that begins with a vowel sound. Okay, see that. An apple, an orange. We use a in front of a countable noun that begins with the consonant sound. See the word book, ba sound. A book, a desk, da, desk. So we use the article a. There are certain exceptions. As I have been telling you all the time, in English there are no hard and fast rules. There are exceptions to almost every rule. Now look at the rule over here. We usually say a should come before a word that begins with a vowel letter or a vowel sound. Now look at these. U, as far as all of us know, U is a letter which we consider to be a vowel letter. E is a vowel letter. Therefore, according to the rule, we should say an university, but it is wrong. Reason is, though the letter is U, the pronunciation is a. Okay? So, whenever we write the letter U, we generally pronounce it as a. See, we say an umbrella, a. So, the letter U is used to pronounce the sound a. Whereas in this word, you see, it is used to pronounce the sound U. Therefore, it is considered to be a consonant sound. Likewise, the word European, we don't say European. Do we say that? No, we say European. So again, it is a consonant sound U. Uniform. So you see, or even one-eyed monster, wa, W sound. So you see, all these words, though they begin with a vowel letter, they have a consonant pronunciation. Hence, we use a in front of these words. Now look at the next exception. An R, an honorable man, an honorarium, an H. Now look at that. You'll know very easily, you will find out that we have to say an R because H is silent. Honorable, again H is silent. Honorarium, H is silent. But look at the last one. You know, in your textbook you have that sentence at the end of the first lesson. His name begins with dash H. I am sure most of you write A-H. No, it is not A, it has to be an. The reason is that letter that you find within the inverted commas is not pronounced as H, which is what most of us do. The correct pronunciation of that letter is H, A-I-T-C-H. If you write, what do you get? That is the pronunciation of this letter. So it is a vowel sound. Hence we have to say H, an H. There is an H missing in this word. That is how we have to talk. However, we don't say H all the time. Supposing the word is house, then it is a consonant sound. We say ha. Therefore, we say a house. But when it comes to the letter, we pronounce it as an H. Alright children, I hope you understand these exceptions. So be careful when you write the word in the examination. Remember, in order to be able to answer correctly, you should know the pronunciation correctly. Next we go to figures of speech. Now figures of speech refer to the indirect way of speaking the language using different linguistic devices in order to make the language more interesting to the listener. I am sure all of us love others to laugh at what we say. If we crack a joke, others laugh, we feel happy, right? So if we talk in an indirect way, making others feel more attracted towards us, we feel happy. That is why it is said that when we use such devices, we say they are giving a figure to the speech. Speech means language. Now there are different figures of speech. Let us learn 5 of them which are meant for your board examination. The first one, a simile. A simile is an indirect comparison in which you find words such as like and as. It is an expanded metaphor. In a simile you will find 2 objects compared with one another. Okay? A common quality will be mentioned between these 2 objects. Look at that sentence. He is as proud as a peacock. The word he refers to a boy, peacock refers to that bird. Both of them have a common quality, and what is that quality? Pride. Okay? So we say he is as proud as a peacock. See, you find those words as, proud as a peacock. The next one, she sings as melodiously as a nightingale. As melodiously as, or we can say she sings like a nightingale. So such figures of speech where you find 2 objects compared with a common quality mentioned, we call them simile. The next figure of speech, metaphor. Metaphor is a direct comparison. It is a shortened simile. It looks as if one object is substituted for the other object. Now look at the same sentence I have changed into a metaphor. He is a proud peacock. We don't say he is as proud as a peacock. When you say he is a proud peacock, it means he is as proud as a peacock, but then you are substituting him in place of the peacock. Look at the next one. She is the nightingale of the school. Nightingale is a bird that sings beautifully. She is a girl in the school. Now she is substituted for the nightingale. Likewise, the third one, I am sure all of you have heard the sentence, a camel is a ship of the desert. Camel is different, desert is different. But you see what we do? We combine both together and we substitute one object for the other. This is called metaphor. The next one, it is personification. As the word signifies, person. Person means human being, something that is alive. There are certain things which are dead, which we say has done the work of living objects. Such a figure of speech is called a personification. See, it is a figure of speech in which an inanimate means lifeless, object is said to do the work of an animate, living object. See that sentence? Walls have ears. Yes, you talk a secret to someone and that secret gets spread everywhere else and you are targeted later and then you wonder, whom did I tell this to? And then the other person who comes and targets you tells you, oh well, you think people don't talk? Walls also have ears. So you see, walls actually don't have ears, but we say walls have ears. We are giving life to the wall. Next one, death's cold fingers wrapped around him. Death is something that is abstract, something we don't know, not tangible. And we say cold fingers wrapped. Okay, fingers of a person can wrap something, but here we are saying that death is a person. Morning lies in the arms of the dawn. Okay, dawn is compared to be the arms of a person. So such figures of speeches are said to be personification.
ಭೀತಿ ತೊರೆಯುವ ನಾವು ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆ ಬರೆಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾ ವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ
ಖಾಲಿ ಜಾಗ ಭರ್ತಿ ಮಾಡಿ ಹೊಂದಿಸಿ ಬರೆದು ಲೆಕ್ಕ ಮಾಡಿ
ಚಿತ್ರ ಬರೆದು ಭಾಗವ ಹೆಸರಿಸಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗೂ ಉತ್ತರಿಸಿ
ಪಾಸು ಫೇಲು ಗೆಲುವು ಸೋಲು ಜೀವನ ಎಲ್ಲಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮಿಗಿಲು
ಅಂಕಗಳೆಂದರೆ ಮೇಲಿನ ತೊಗಟೆ ವಿದ್ಯೆ ಅದರ ಒಳಗಿನ ತಿರುಳು ಭೀತಿ ತೊರೆಯುವ ನಾವು ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆ ಬರೆಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾ ವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾ ವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾ ವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ